Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Boss Labs. My name is Chu Gutierrez, and a few days ago I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, and we were working on a project while we were out there. On the last day though, we got to hang out and kind of do some exploring, and I shot some clips of this shop that you'll see here in some of the clips. Now the thing is, I usually carry around a bunch of stuff, a few lenses. I'll carry around my Ronin, especially to shoot a lot of the B-roll that I shoot on projects like this. I like to shoot at 60 frames a second, which is what you're seeing right now, but all this footage was shot without a gimbal. So it's just me, my camera, and my Sigma 24-105 that does have stabilization within the lens, but that was it. So I was capturing this B-roll shooting, and I wanted to kind of shoot the way I usually do, which is having some nice smooth motion in my footage, which is why I shoot at 60 frames a second, so then we can slow it down and it looks nice and beautiful like this. But sometimes you try to do moves like this and you can't necessarily get that kind of movement with your hands. I know sometimes I can't. So this is where warp stabilization comes in. I'm going to show you how easy it is to apply and sometimes how it doesn't always work. And that's one of the big things that I think you need to look out for when you're doing stuff like this. So this is a beautiful shot here where I used warp stabilizer, and we'll actually start off right here. So as you can see, all I was doing was walking back. So I press record, told him just to look at the lens and start walking back. Right, but if we look at the actual original clip, let's go ahead and press the F key. This is what the original looks like. Let's actually put this up at full resolution. You see that kind of shaky jitteriness? It's my steps and my body as I'm like not really walking back super smoothly, but then you look at the final and this is what we get out of it. Right? If you use this a lot, you can maybe see a little bit of the warping ends, but not too much on this clip. Now, one of the clips where it didn't work is something you didn't see was instead of using this shot here as the opening for him working at his workbench here, it was going to be one of the shots that I have over here. I believe it was this one. You see, I already have it selected. So if I pop that into the timeline, let's just take a look at it, right? See, I'm pulling back. And you know, it's not super smooth. You kind of see me like wobble a little bit. And let's go ahead and apply warp stabilization. So if we go under our effects panel, wherever you may have it, usually what I do is I just search warp and there it is. So if this clip is selected over here, all you have to do is double click instead of dragging and dropping. And as you'll see, it starts saying it's going to analyze in the background. You can see a progress report of that under your effects controls. If you go down to your warp stabilization down here, you can see how much time is remaining and how many frames it's analyzed. Now it can tell you that it'll work in the background, but in my experience, depending on how big the project is or how intensive the files are, if you start working on something else, sometimes it will continue and finish doing the stabilization, and sometimes it'll just stop, and then when you go back to it, it'll ask you to stabilize it again or to analyze it again. So okay, now it's done. It's stabilized, it told me it was stable, and let's go ahead and play it back. So not awful, but not great. The last bit's okay, but if you start looking closely, look at this area right here in the edges a little bit. You can start seeing this kind of the warp, right? Where it's trying to, you know, maneuver the clip and to manipulate the clip so that it looks like you're moving smoothly and straight. You get this kind of weird warp. You get a bad warp, I guess. And you can go in and toggle the settings. Sometimes you can move with smoothness. You can overdo it. I mean, I don't know, this is probably just going to make it worse. So let's see. Yeah, see, it's just way more intense. You can go down. You can usually, honestly, for me, if it doesn't get it right in the first time and I maneuver it a tiny bit over here percentage-wise, it's not going to work, which is why I never rely on using warp stabilization. It's always an aid to something that I'm doing, right? So I'm never going to say, hey, let's not worry about this, I'm going to stabilize it in post. And I think for most people, I know nowadays there's certain things, Sony has certain technologies with their cameras where you can turn off image stabilization and it records it, and with the program in post, it does a better job of stabilizing your footage. There's different workarounds. There's always using gimbals and stuff like that. But even with some of my gimbal work, I will use warp stabilizer as an aid. In this case, this is all I had. I wasn't planning on shooting a video. I wasn't planning on meeting this man that day. I'm just glad that we showed up and I had my camera and I had to shoot something. So I said, hey, you know what? Let me shoot some clips. Let me get my coverage, and hopefully warp stabilizer will work on most of these, and it sure did. This clip that I just showed you that I worked on, where I showed you where it doesn't work, was probably the only clip in this where I used it and it didn't work for me, right? So a lot of these clips, including this one here, I believe has warp stabilization. So if we take that off, let's look at how it looks if it didn't have it. Right, you see that? And then let's pop it back on. Smoother, right? Just a nice kind of pullback, no crazy warping going on, just less distracting images. And that's what we use it for, right? Some of these shots were static. Sometimes warp stabilization can just help you keep them static, you know, and that's basically it. That's my rule of thumb for it, is if you have to tweak it too much, then pick a different clip or don't use it at all. And that's kind of the beauty in it. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there who will go to warp stabilization as a very, very, very heavy crutch. And I think that it should be used as an aid. It should be used to kind of just make it a little bit better than what it was without it. And it will save your ass a lot of the time. Trust me. Just, I can't rely on it. I've been using it since they announced it, since you used to have to put it into After Effects to use warp stabilization. And it is a fantastic tool that I use on a daily basis. Just be careful. Look out for the edges. Look out for any weird kind of things, because one thing I will say, as someone who shoots video and someone who uses warp stabilization, if it's not perfect, and a lot of my stuff isn't, I will be able to tell. Your mom and dad might not be able to tell, but other professionals, people who know what they're looking at, will absolutely know. And I feel like that's one of the things that we run into sometimes, is using it thinking that no one will notice, and unfortunately we 100% notice. People might not be able to know what is actually happening, but people take notice. So use warp stabilization, know when to not use it, know when it messes up your clip and you just have to say goodbye. Sorry, we can't use this clip right now. And that's it for today. Enjoy, and don't overstabilize your footage, because we can totally tell. Anyways, hope this was helpful to someone out there who's just getting started. And yeah, we'll see you next time. If you liked this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up. If you like content like this or want to see more of our other type of content, make sure to subscribe to our channel. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks.